Good morning. Today, with the Empowering Transformation series, we have Vicki Thorpe of Incredible Families is an energy and relationship coach. She has coached thousands of individuals and families with an international self-development organization for over 18 years. Because of her passion for having people experience themselves as powerful and have people experience their relationships as supportive and loving, she has developed her own programs to widen her reach. I'm so honored to have Vicki with us today. Vicki, can you share with us how you started getting to work with people and helping them through their stress and releasing trauma?
Yeah, it really started with my own life, which I think for most of us it does. And when I was a child, or when I was around 7, 8 years old, I recognized um, there was some dysfunction. So my mom was very artistic, super expressive, and my dad was a computer scientist and very quiet and reserved and not very expressive. And then we added my brother, who we adopted at 9 months old, and he was ADHD and allergies and reactive attachment disorder and all the dysfunction of the family and lack of communication got obvious. It's a good way to put it.
Louder and louder?
Yeah, very loud. Yeah. So eventually my parents divorced, remarried. I have step siblings, half siblings. And the communication uh, issues expand as the family expands. So, I actually got a degree in communications and went to college, got my degree in communications, and I thought that, I had kind of the Cinderella perspective that things would just somehow work out, that I'd figure things out, I'd have a happily ever after, and that I'd work out my own family and have a great family. Well, I woke up, I married a great man, had 2 children, and I woke up at 38 years old feeling like I was in the middle of a nightmare. My happily ever after was turning out not that way.
We have these expectations, and sometimes they just go poof, and they're gone, or not gone, but just like, oh my gosh, that was nowhere close to what I had dreamed about.
Yeah. And even with all my experience and my communications degree and my experience of working with a couple of companies, I just was at a loss for what to do. And I looked around. My daughter and I were fighting over homework. My son was having extreme anxiety about going to school. And when I went to go talk to the school, it just did not go well. And, I looked around and I could see other people communicating and getting the results they wanted. And families that had good relationships, even amidst struggles and children not acting the way they should act, that they were still able to work out communication and things were able to be resolved in some way. And I just had no idea how to work things out, even though I had a degree in communication. Nothing I did seemed to work. So I was at a loss, and I looked around and could see other families working. And I was like, what am I doing wrong? I started out kind of not so empowering question, and then I went, okay, what are they doing that I could do, or there has to be something that I'm missing here that I need to be doing that will have things work out. Well, it took about 6 months, and when you ask questions, depending on your belief system, either the universe answers you, either your higher power answers you, or the things line up and turn out so that you get an answer. However people believe that happens, you do get answers. And then you get to recognize them. Well, an opportunity came, and I recognized it as an opportunity, and I took this course, and I could then see what was going on that I couldn't see before. And one of the things I recognized is I was being a victim in in every communication that I was having with people. I was being a victim. And so I was not getting results that other people were getting, because a victim doesn't get results. Or they get the results of being a victim, right?
Yippee.
Yeah.
Oh.
Not fun, but it was a great recognition, because once I recognized that, I recognized I could actually impact it. And immediately, we switched schools because that was part of what needed to happen. And my communication with the principal, the teacher, everything, and how I was setting things up with my daughter and my son, everything just, it's not like it was easy, but I could see what there was to do, and I could get the results that I wanted because I wasn't being a victim anymore.
Wow.
So, the questions had me discover that, and had things line up so I could actually have things work out in my life. So that was the start of it. And after I was able to get results, I was like, I want to help other people get results, that they want in their lives, and results that they have given up on or thought that wouldn't be possible because life is not going that way.
No, it's so easy to just give up hope. It's just like, why try? It can be a tricky place. I find that I fall into the category of like being a martyr, working myself, giving too much, but that's also part of that victim aspect. It's just like another slightly different hat, and to be aware, when you're wearing these different hats that are not helpful to anybody at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as you saw that and in your life, and then got training to help you, can you give examples of how you help clients move past their trauma and get into more of a peaceful place and be able to move forward?
First thing, it looks like I'm frozen. The first thing I do is breathe. Take a great big deep breath, because I notice for me that oftentimes when I'm in trauma, I'm holding my breath. And so I actually, when I'm working with clients, that's one of the first things that we'll work on, is having them recognize if it's holding their breath. For most people, it's either holding their breath or breathing really fast and shallowly. So that deep breath works for either. And that's like the first thing that we work on. And then having them set up a question that they can ask themselves that will help interrupt what's going on with them, the response that they're having. And my typical question I ask myself is, what's really going on here? Or what's going on with me? And yeah, and then after I ask that, then I can usually discover something that I didn't see before. Like oftentimes I recognize I'm not relating as an adult, that I'm being a 2-year-old.
Oh, sometimes it's fun to be able to throw a tantrum, but no, that's not.
No, it's not workable in most situations. There are times it is, and then you should utilize it.
Typically, no. Isn't that partly because there's part of us that still hasn't healed, and it's easy to fall into that pattern? What do you think about that kind of concept?
Oh, yeah. Yep. And so I look at when something like that happens as actually an opportunity, like your body and how you're responding is actually bringing up what needs to be healed. And, yeah. And if it's not appropriate in that very moment to work on that, then I just say to my body, okay, right now, we're not going to work on you, but within the next 48 hours, we're going to take a look at this. And then I usually schedule it so that I can actually look at what's really going on.
Yes. You know, I
Yeah.
had a situation like that. There was a time I was driving a friend who happened to be a man to his doctor appointment. He didn't have his own car. And I had driven him before. And anyway, when I got in the car with him this time, I started having a panic attack when we were trying to get back home. And it was ridiculous, like body. So I did some breathing techniques and worked with myself and said, okay, I recognize this isn't cool. We will explore this at a healthier time, but right now I have to drive us home. He didn't have a license. It's not like I could have said, hey, you drive. But yeah, my legs, they cramped up and I couldn't even function the pedals. It was ridiculous. And I had to apply that. It's like, hello, I'm here. Let's give some love. Let's give some breath. Let's move forward. We will investigate this at a more appropriate time.
And that's really an appropriate thing to do at that time, right?
Yeah, I mean, I was almost to the point where I was like, okay, I will call my husband to come rescue the two of us because I can't drive this vehicle. Every time I could get out and be perfectly fine. And then once I got back into the car with him, it was like panic attack. And it was ridiculous because I had driven him places before. And it was time to heal something that had not been time previously. I was at a point where it was time.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
So that's when you get to start asking questions too. So when you're in a place that it's appropriate and works for you to respond to it and work through it, then you start asking questions. Okay, was it a smell? Was it something, a sight? Was it something I felt?
And you know what it was? It was his smell. He knows that I'm very sensitive to smoke. And he was around people that smoked before getting in the car with me. And I felt 100% trapped, like I had no choice. You know, I wasn't going to have him miss his doctor appointment because I couldn't handle his smoke. But then I felt trapped in that situation. And my body did not want to be trapped in a situation with a man. It just rebelled. I'm like, oh, there's some healing that has to happen. That was not there. That didn't make itself aware to me previously. Yeah. Things come up when you're ready to take care of it. And sometimes it feels like you're not ready to take care of it. Like, no, I'm not ready to deal with this.
Yeah. Sometimes it does feel that way. Yep. In the moment.
Yeah. So how do you work tell me some more examples of how you work with your clients with this questioning aspect. Share other questions that you might ask. So I heard you say, what's going on with me? And did you say, what age am I acting like? Was that one of your questions?
What age am I acting from? Yeah. And that is always the interesting one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because some of our trauma does time back to a certain age, and then it's just pulling things up as waiting to be healed more thoroughly. Yeah. Is there other questions that you ask?
Yeah, that's kind of a starting point. So just like when I was asking you a question is like, what is it that's triggering me in this moment?
Oh, the smell. Yes. See, my brain already forgot that.
Yeah. So is it, something that is a feel, clothing, or something that I touched, or is it a smell? Is it a sound? Sometimes it'll be a sound. Is it a taste? So going through the senses, sometimes the younger you are, sometimes the senses will store information about trauma that will come up when a certain taste, smell, texture comes up. And then when it comes up, it's time to set a time, a date to a healing date or
Right.
exploratory date, whatever you want to call it. But you get to set a date with your mind, body, spirit to work on it.
Mm. Mm. So is there something else that you would like to share with our audience about, working through stress or trauma, being able to have more peace, and certainly being able to move forward? Are there things where you notice it's like, oh, I am in this loop? And how do you notice when you're in something that's not where you want to be?
So for me, one of the most important things is to actually have a purpose.
Oh,
Because when when I have a purpose, and I like setting that up daily, and I actually um, I belong to a group right now that we have a phone call. Um, I have a phone call with a different person every week, but I have a phone call with a person, and we create what the purpose is of our day, or um, who we're going to be, or um, what we're going to live by for that day, whatever, however you want to word it. But it really creates a way to pick up more clearly on when a response comes up that isn't worth, fit in with it. It shows up. So that's like the first step. And, if I'm going into a situation that's more difficult, I'll actually create an intention around, okay, I'm going into this situation. What's my intention around this situation? Um, you know, like speaking with you today and doing this interview today, I actually created an intention around what I wanted to contribute and what I want people left with. And then that has, no matter what happens during this, I know that underlying that's going to be fulfilled on, and that people will get value out of being listening and being part of this. So that means anything can happen. And it's okay.
yes.
And
Yeah.
it gives me a place to springboard from. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is I recognize, like for me, holding my breath is one of the things that I do when I'm in a trauma response. And so to just recognize if I'm holding my breath, okay, something's up, take a great big deep breath. I'm going to deal with this later. If I can't, can I deal with it now? No, I'm going to deal with this later. And then I'll go into, okay, what is it I need to accomplish right now? Okay, where I'm going to be adult me right now, and I'm going to deal with this as an adult. And then I'll look at it later on. So that's one of the things I do. And the thing is life throws you stuff all the time. It's an opportunity, and it's a learning experience. And it's really for our development. So I look at even trauma is part of our development. And if you can, even when you're in it, and I know this doesn't sound, it's counterintuitive, but really look for the experience, going through the experience, and don't resist it. Lean into it, go through the experience, and breathe.
So what does leaning into the experience, what does that look like? What does that feel like? Or what does it even, can you flesh that out so I can understand that a little bit more thoroughly? To lean into the experience of the trauma.
Well,
bring it on.
Yeah. Well, it's not, I don't like to say bring it on because I don't want more.
No, it's not cool when you're there. It's so not cool.
But maybe I'm wimpy that way, but I just go, okay, I'm in this experience instead of disconnecting from it. Sometimes, I know when I'm disconnecting from it, I'll eat half a bag of potato chips. I don't usually eat potato chips, and I'll crave that starchy or sugary thing, which is different than just eating, 2 or 3 that just satisfies you, right?
Right.
Yeah. So I recognize, instead of disconnecting, well, if I notice I'm doing a disconnecting behavior, then I go, okay, I'm putting away the disconnection, or maybe I'll lean even into the disconnection. Okay, right now I'm going to disconnect. I'm just going to do it. And then it's like, okay, now what does it look like to lean into it? Okay, it means
Wait, what was that question? I'm having a little hard time hearing you. What does it look like for what?
What does it look like to lean into it?
Okay.
Yeah.
So you'll actually say that to yourself.
Uh-huh. And
Okay.
so what I recognize is recognizing if I disconnect, and then schedule what I'm going to myself for actually um, looking at it and asking questions about it, and asking myself what I need to do to support myself through it. So that's one of the questions. What do I need to do to support myself through this?
What do I need to do? Yeah. Yeah, I remember telling you of a time when I recognized I hadn't grieved my father's death, and I was eating a whole plate full of fudge, like over a dozen pieces. And it was like the fudge was comforting me because I hadn't mourned thoroughly enough and gotten comfort. And I remember you working through that with me, and we talked about, well, what could I do? And, get a blanket and touch, and feel and be in your body and have an experience to feel supported, to feel that comfort. And yes, binging, I can happily binge, but it's looking at that reason from that underlies why do I have this need? Yeah. And
Yeah.
and recognizing, oh, I just needed some more tender, loving care. And if there's no one to give it to me, then I give it to myself.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah.
Yeah, and it
So,
can be just as simple as that, just, okay, I just binged on fudge. What was I really needing?
yeah,
And
yeah,
and then you discover comfort. Yeah.
yeah,
It doesn't have to be long and drawn out and take hours. It can be really simple.
yeah. And I want to share with the audience that we had done a previous recording that I had not recorded. So you got to hear that little story from me in our previous non-recorded session. And life goes on, and yeah, it's just a beautiful thing, um, to have patience and care for one another. So I appreciate you, Vicki. Now, is there something else that you would like to leave with us? I want to I know in our other recording, we talked about how the brain was working and the importance of the breath, and you were talking about the amygdala and things like that. Would you like to take a moment to explain some of that?
Yeah. Well, first of all, just breathing is so important because it helps. It's an easy way, and we're all breathing all the time. It's not something funky that you have to do that calls attention to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you notice you're in the sympathetic nervous system in a freeze, fight, or flight response, taking a great big deep breath helps get you back into your parasympathetic system. And sometimes you have to take several great big deep breaths.
Yes.
But,
Yeah.
so yeah, and it's pretty easy to do. So that's like the first step that I, that is works really well, and it's very easy to do. And then when you're taking that deep breath, it actually helps your brain to go back into the cortex and be able to think through the process instead of responding um, automatically. So
Right.
yeah, and then I can sometimes follow it up with, if it's not responding quite the way I want it to, I'll say, is there really a lion running after me right now?
Yes, I was waiting for that question because I remember you mentioned that earlier. I'm like, yes, sometimes there is a lion chasing after me, but most
Yeah,
of the
and if
time
there
there is
is,
not.
then you go with the response. If it's really a lion situation, then it's totally appropriate to run, freeze, or fight back. I mean,
Right.
the body's set up to do that.
Yeah, and it's fascinating how the body will not send blood to the brain, but it's all going to the limbs, so it can either fight or, run away. And the freeze part, I don't quite understand why it chooses to do that. But I notice that sometimes I get locked up in a freeze pattern where I just can't move forward. And that's kind of what happened with that guy. I was trying to give him a ride. I could not push down the pedal. I just, my legs literally locked up in a frozen muscle spasm. I just refused. Yeah. But how do you pull people out of a freeze state, or one of the other ones if they are stuck in that pattern? Do you just try and get them to enter their breath, ask them some questions? Do you find that they typically are not in their body? They're just, disassociating, and so can't even connect to get the answers?
That's why you start with breathing.
That's why you start with breathing. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, oftentimes what I'll do is after the breathing, if they're not connecting to questions, then I'll just do a visualization with them. And see if they can connect to that. Sometimes you just have to let people run that course and just give them the space to be in their response.
Sometimes we just beat ourselves up, or we're like, this is taking too long, and we don't have enough compassion for ourselves and for what we are experiencing, and to try and figure out a way to have a little bit of downtime so that our bodies can have a chance to release the stress. We just seem to go, and we need to be more gentle on ourselves. Honor, give yourself a 5-minute break.
Yeah. Yeah, and that really, when you say that, the other part to help, it really helps to get out of that freeze, fight, or flight, the sympathetic nervous system, if you have structure set up. So like creating your day, also having a schedule and things that a schedule to not so tight. If you put too many things in the schedule, it can put you back into the freeze, fight, or flight. But having a schedule of things that you can plan on during the day is really important.
And scheduling that 10-minute break in between so that you can, there's times where I just relax my face and I breathe, because I hold so much tension just in my face, and yeah. So, Vicki, before we let you go, is there anything else that you would like to leave with us? And if you could please speak to what you want to offer to our audience to support them in this process of letting go of the stress that we often live with and being able to move forward.
Well, because my superpower is asking questions and listening, I would love to offer a simple questioning process for people to be able to set themselves up with that will help have them recognize what's going on and help them either give themselves compassion for being in that situation and just let it go through the course of what it needs to, or to pull them out of it, whatever needs to happen in the moment, and to really give them some options to be able to look at. Yeah.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much for putting that together for us. I am so thankful for the time that you have given and that you have agreed to be part of this summit. I know that the path that you have been on has not been an easy one, and you have let that transform you into a place where you're serving others and helping in a way that is so needed during this time that we have. It's the stressors that are coming upon us are a lot, and they may get even larger, and we need to have some skills to help us make it through. And I appreciate you and your tenacity that you have that has brought you to this point in your life to be able to serve. So thank you.
Well, thank you for putting the summit together so people have resources and things and have things to call upon to be able to deal with the stresses and trauma that come up in their lives, and be able to enjoy the process, because stuff is always going to be happening, but to be able to take it, turn it around, and enjoy the whole process, and have peace and joy and progress now, and not have to wait until you're through the trauma, just to have it be part of life.
And recognizing the progress that we are making. It's, yeah, being aware of where we came from, and not being so hard on ourselves, but knowing that we can move forward and make changes as they are needed, and be inspired with that. Well, I will leave us with that today, and I hope that my listeners will be able to have more peace in their life as you breathe in, and that you will have the capability to tune in to how you can move forward and ask questions about where you are, to have more awareness so that you can have the beauty that you do want. And I leave that with you, and have a lovely day. Bye.